Hello and welcome to another episode of Fundy Tidings. I'm your host Jay Remer, and with me today I have Angela Hughes and Gwyneth Wilbur, who are working on a very exciting new project. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
I think this is so exciting. So what is happening is you are forming a new orchestra in Charlotte County and Washington County, and this is like so exciting.
Yes.
So tell me about how this all kind of began and who you have as your major players.
Okay, well, let's talk how we met to begin with, I guess.
Well, I'm newly arrived to this area about 3 years ago, and I play viola. And I needed my bow rehaired, so I searched far and wide and finally found Gwyneth, who's a local luthier. She rehaired my bow and also made my viola. So when I got here, I heard about the orchestra in Calais called the Passamaquoddy Bay Symphony, and I played there for one season. And then at the end of that season, they disbanded, which was a big disappointment.
For everyone.
Yes,
Yeah.
They were probably a 35-member symphony orchestra. And so when they disbanded, I kept talking to Gwyneth and my teachers saying, it's such a shame, all these musicians here, you know, we need a place to play. And my teacher actually said, well, why don't you form an orchestra? Mm-hmm. So then I talked to Gwyneth. I said, what do you think about this? And she said, I think we should go for it.
Yeah.
So when the orchestra disbanded in Calais, we got a list of all the musicians and we emailed them
It's a good place to start.
for interest.
Yeah.
And the majority of them said they were. And so they became kind of the beginning members of the orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the viewers have no idea what comprises an orchestra or what is involved in putting one together. I mean, to me, it would be a monumental concept. And it's like, oh my Lord, where does one begin? Yeah. So you begin with an old disbanded orchestra.
That's
that you
a
kind
nice
of
way to start. We were lucky. Yeah.
Pull
Yes.
back together
to have
again. So who are you going to have? I mean, orchestras. So my mind says that there's always a first violin and a conductor, and the rest of it kind of falls into place. That's the way one looks at it from as an audience. Is there any accuracy to that? And if so, who are you going to be having in those roles?
We were lucky, actually, because I knew Hawk Kwan from many years of either doing work for him and watching his career.
And who is he?
And he would be the conductor. He has quite an illustrious past and present as a musician, violinist, as well as a conductor. So he came from Hong Kong originally in 1992 with his wife, Rachel, who's I think she's an opera singer. And he played for the New Brunswick Symphony Orchestra. He played with the string quartet. He also it's now disbanded, but there was Ultramare, was a small chamber group that formed in St. John. He was the conductor of that. And now he has gone on to be a conductor for the Symphonette, which is similar to Ultramare, a small chamber orchestra. He's the concertmaster for the Prince Edward Island Symphony Orchestra. And here in St. Andrews, he's the director of the arts program.
The Arts Council?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he has a lot on his plate, but we went to his I said, let's go visit him. And we went to his concert last fall, and we approached him and said, listen, this is what we're trying to do. We need a conductor. Don't know if you have the time, and if you don't, if you could refer us to someone else, but we'd love to have you as our conductor. And he said, well, yes, I think I have the time. So he came down, and we've had a couple of practices with him, and he's a great fit.
That's fantastic.
Really great fit. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what comprises the orchestra at the moment? I mean, what is the sort of the I guess the flavor or the emphasis?
Well, we are kind of branding ourselves as a chamber orchestra, which is a bit smaller than a full symphony orchestra. So it's comprised of strings, which is violin, viola, cello, bass, and then it has some woodwinds and brass, so oboe, bassoon, French horn, trumpet, flutes, and timpani. So we have most of those musicians. We're still looking for a few, but we have close to 30 musicians to start with, which I think is pretty good.
And we got also Dimitri, he's our concert violinist, the first violinist. So he plays with Hawk already in St. John, and so we approached him, and he's originally from the Soviet Union.
Yes.
Actually moved to Mexico originally, and then to Alberta, worked with the Sistema program. A wonderful musician, great personality, and we're lucky to have him too.
Yeah, they're a great team.
Yeah, great team.
I would say.
Yeah.
I think that it's really quite amazing that these all these pieces are falling into place so nicely.
Yes.
What kind of music are you going to play? Because I know that when people decide if they're going to go to, because orchestra is one of those words that can be like yay, or it can be like run in the other direction, and a lot of it depends on the music.
Yes.
And so, what kind of music are you going to be playing?
So we will be playing classical, but we're also going to look at jazz and show tunes and like approachable music that I think audience will recognize and enjoy.
Yeah.
So the idea is to make it enjoyable for both the audience and the musicians, because we're mostly amateur musicians.
I think it's so exciting that there's going to be another organization like this around, and the fact that it is cross-border has a lot of wonderful implications, I would imagine.
Oh yeah. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, so we are calling ourselves the St. Croix Chamber Orchestra, and the reason for that name choice is that the musicians come from both sides of that river. So we are truly an international orchestra, not just with our membership, but also our conductor being originally from Hong Kong, our concertmaster originally from Russia. So I think it's a wonderful mix, and so far it's been extremely enjoyable.
Yeah, and we're hoping to have concerts on this side of the border as well as in Maine.
Yeah.
So, what is the? How does one get involved with the orchestra? Say, I was a musician, and you're looking for musicians. So, what is the connection there? In other words, do you have a Facebook page, or is this word of mouth through the musicians community, or how does it work?
So right now it is word of mouth, and Gwyneth, because she's a luthier, so she's connected to a lot of musicians, has found us, quite a few people, but we are planning a website and a Facebook page. We're in the very beginnings of that, so we don't have them yet, but yes,
so
that
we
will
need
be
the
the
people
plan.
To help us.
Yes.
Do that.
So that would be fairly typical of any sort of newly formed not-for-profit group.
Yes.
You're still looking for some help?
Yes.
Yes.
So what kind of help are you looking for?
We are, I would say right now, two areas specifically are the kind of marketing end, so getting our website up and running, social media, and then on the fundraising side, because we need to raise the capital so we can operate. And so those two areas specifically, we are looking for people to join our board to help us.
Right.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like the cost, and for me, this is new to be in this position. You come from an orchestra where you were on a board in Ontario, so she has some experience. Being on a board for an orchestra is new to me, but ultimately, like you think about it, you've got to rent your space, you have to pay the conductor and the first violinist, you have to buy the music. There are many costs, and pay the people to do the website, pay this, and plus maintain that year after year. So it's like, okay, well, that's actually something that is a continuous project. It's not something a one-off and there off we go. It's something you have to manage and keep working on, and have a good board that really is interested in keeping keeping
Right.
keeping it alive.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're dealing with the typical challenges that
Yes.
not-for-profits
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
looking at. So that well, that's exciting that you're that you're addressing these things, because without that, you're not. It's not going to. It's not going to fly.
No.
But it sounds like you're like it's going to be fantastic. I would like to talk a little bit about sort of the reason to have an orchestra in Charlotte County and Washington County. What is, because I think that I know for myself, I love music. So I love listening to music. I don't play it, but I love hearing it. And I know it's part of the cultural fabric of the community, but how, from your perspective as not only a musicians, but also this phrase that you used earlier, luthier. Okay, so I think that we could find out a little bit more about what a luthier is.
A luthier is someone who makes, repairs, and restores stringed instruments generally, but it can also apply to someone who makes guitars, someone who makes any instrument, but it's an instrument maker, repair person, and restore. So that's been my profession for all my life.
Yeah.
And so that's just an interesting side line to being
And
in an
because
orchestra.
of Gwyneth, I have a viola made in New Brunswick,
There you go.
which I think is so amazing, and it sounds beautiful. Yeah.
But as far as the cultural fabric goes, how do you see this fitting in, and do you see it as filling a void? How do you view this entire thing?
Absolutely.
Well, for me as an amateur, I love the instruction. Like, it truly, in an amateur orchestra, the conductor and the concertmaster, they're really teaching us to be better musicians and to be comfortable performing and exposing us to a lot of different music. But the other facet is, for example, in my section, the violas, if I have somebody who's better than me that I sit beside, so that affects my ability and it brings my level up. The other thing that I'm really hoping with, especially with Sistema coming into the community, is that we're going to be an avenue or platform for young people to join us, play with us, we can play for them. So my hope is that it's not just a bunch of older amateurs, that we actually can
Draw
keep
on,
the
yeah.
group fresh, and so
Encourage
yeah,
them,
that's a very exciting development. to
And
me.
that we just found out that, you know, Sistema is definitely coming to the region, and so that will bring in a couple of professional musicians who will be part of the teaching. So hopefully they will also join us, and then that would also be very encouraging to their students who are going to be watching their teachers potentially playing in an orchestra, and then that will draw them in, and they'll realize, wow, this is something that I could maybe do for the fun of it or for a profession. Who knows where it will go for a young person, but it just hasn't been in the area. There's been nothing in the area of this since the 80s. There was a small band that formed in around the St. George area through the school system, and it was great in the 80s, and then it ended, but there hasn't really been anything since. And I've been here since 84 or whatever, so I've watched how, and there were a lot of fiddlers and there were a lot of that kind of music, but even they have it's sort of like a breed that sort of disappeared. So just to bring music back into the community on a full-time basis, and potentially get some private lessons as well as Sistema. And
So when you refer to Sistema, there are likely a number of our viewers who don't know what Sistema is. Could you sort of abbreviate that, or give us the Coles notes?
It originated in Venezuela, and they in Venezuela
It being
the program Sistema.
Of children playing music.
Yeah. And they realized that many of the children were basically going to school, but they were on the streets after school, and they had nothing to do and nowhere to go, and parents were working, and so they were just adrift. And they were trying to figure out, how can we give them something to have, you know, a certain pride and certain enjoyment in. And so they started this program, and they literally had the kids build paper instruments and cardboard instruments, so they have a feel for this idea of playing an instrument. And eventually they got donations, so that all the instruments are coming from donation, and they do in all the Sistema programs that donated instruments. And it's an after-school program, and it's all over the world now. And the teachers are often young people coming out of the university programs, and they're looking for their first jobs as teachers, and so the kids play, and often it's a 5-day-a-week commitment after school. They can choose whichever instrument they want to play in the orchestra, and some of the like you talk to some of the conductors who are in the Sistema program as conductors. They started as that little child with absolutely no idea that that was potentially who they were going to become in life. So whether you become a professional musician or whether you do it for the fun of it for the rest of your life, this is what music should be. You know?
It's so important, it seems to me, it's so important to introduce music at an early age. I know when I went to school 100 years ago, I had to play the violin, I had to play the recorder, I had to do all these things. And it was something that all students did. And as time went on, a lot of those sort of extras were dropped. And to see it coming back at this pace, which is seems to me a comfortable pace. I think pace is really important. You can't just rush into things.
No, especially music, learning music. Yeah.
But I know Sistema has come to St. Andrews in the past because Mrs. Fleemer has been a big supporter of Sistema and has really helped them, by giving them a venue to perform. And so I'm guessing that your organization, although it is going to be smaller to begin with, is going to be seeking venues to perform.
Yes.
And so how do you go about, I mean, if I was looking for musicians, of course, I just call up Jamie Steele and say, no, help. But he doesn't refer people to orchestras.
No.
So how do you go about selecting where you want to play and all of that kind of thing, or have you gotten that far yet?
I mean,
we have a little bit.
Yeah.
So there is the former performance location in Calais where the PBSO performed. We will probably perform there initially. And then here in St. Stephen, the middle school has a beautiful theater that seats 500 people, beautiful stage, which I would say is big enough for our size orchestra. So I think initially we'll probably start there. And then as we grow and maybe go further afield, we'll seek out other locations.
And depending on the time of year we play, there might be an opportunity to play in an outdoor venue if it's summertime. If we wanted to do an outdoor concert. Or with the tent, like at Minister's Island, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll explore that as we reach those points. But I think there are venues in the area that a lot of the time sit empty.
Oh, there's no question.
Yes.
I think there's probably great opportunities.
Yes.
So how will you go about, or how can we help you in reaching your goals? So, for instance, you want to do some fundraising. So people need to be able to contact you, and so you'll be getting information out through social media and other venues in order to get the word out, because it's kind of a kept secret at the moment.
Well,
but maybe that's by design.
Because we're just getting everything off the ground, and we needed to secure a certain things such as a place to practice, the concert master and the conductor, in order to go
for it to be real.
Yeah. And we finally got there.
Those things, and I think we had a couple trial rehearsals that were very well received, and I think at the end of the second one, everybody felt committed. Like the conductor, the concert master, the musicians. Like there was a real level of excitement in the room. So we're there now. So now we have to do the behind the scenes work to kind of pull it all together.
So at this point, it is hard to contact us, although we could, leave our contact information. But, it might be at this point, we're going to have to do some door-to-door on ourselves, like basically print out some information for for our sponsors or potential sponsors to understand what we need, who we are, where we're going with this.
Yes.
So it's going to be a little bit of footwork to begin with until we get the social media and all the other platforms up.
We'll likely do a Facebook page first. That's the thing we can do the quickest.
Yes.
Which will probably be called St. Croix Chamber Orchestra.
Right.
And we are going to be putting a package together for corporate sponsors. So we will be looking for corporate sponsorship.
So what scale of financing are you talking about? Are you talking about thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars? Or what?
We did kind of a preliminary budget, and it's around going to be between 20 and 30,000 a year.
So that's
to
something
run
that
it.
the community could hopefully get together and support, because you've got a
Yes.
fairly large community, and that would, it sounds
And
to
on
me,
both sides of the border, too.
that's right.
Yeah.
It sounds like quite a doable, a
It is
doable
very
thing.
doable.
And we'll apply for grants as well. There's a certain number of grants we'll look into.
And so the musicians, other than the first violinist, are volunteers?
Yes.
And so is that customary? Is that
Yes.
how orchestras are? And so the people who are playing these instruments are doing this because they love to do it, obviously.
Yeah.
And
They are, the whole experience is, you know, the instruction we get from Hawk, it's actually very valuable.
so it sounds to me like it's a whole an orchestra is like a community.
It is.
And so
Yes.
it's because if you're not getting paid, your heart has to be in this.
Yes.
So you develop great relationships, and not only between yourselves, but with the professionals that you hire.
Yes.
It sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
How do you go about, like, I know I'm not going to take up music at my I have enough to do, but supposing I didn't, how do you go about convincing people to get over that? You know how people, oh, I couldn't paint.
I'm not good enough.
You know all that. It's the not good enough coin, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you go about encouraging people to, because you don't want rank amateurs who have never picked up a violin before, but at some point in time, that's where everyone begins,
Yes.
right? So how? So by the time they get to being able to play orchestral pieces, they are already kind of established in, like, they've already decided they want to be musicians, or is it still a dabbling area?
Well, it can
like,
be
could somebody
both.
just pick up something and say, I want to be like,
It happens.
like the
Yeah,
timpani, for
yeah,
instance, could
yeah.
be something that could be perhaps.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to make a mistake, though.
No.
Well, I learned to play music as an adult. I didn't play music before my 30s, so the way I learned is my children were in violin lessons, and they learned a certain method called the Suzuki method, where they encourage the parents to learn alongside their children so that they can help their children do their practicing. And so I did that, and then I ended up loving it, so I kept going with it. So I think at any age you can take it up.
Yeah.
You really can. It's like learning a new skill.
Yeah.
The most important thing to play in a group is you need to read music. So if you can't read music, it's very difficult.
Right.
Yeah. But even if you're, like, we're all at different levels within the orchestra. Not everyone is a great musician. Some are finer musicians than others. And you want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable. And so even if you're having trouble, the first cellist or the first violinist can help you out with your bowing, and or else you're like, well, use this fingering instead of that fingering. That will help. So we help each other.
Yeah.
So there's never a point where someone says, well, I'm just not good enough, because we're there to, as a community, help each other grow and be better musicians. We'll have sectionals, and sectionals means that you separate into groups. So the strings go off in a room and practice together. The brass go off in a room and practice together. So those sectionals are very important as part of the. So someone who says, like, I just don't think they look at the music and it scares them off. Well, it scared me off too, and some of it is really hard for me to manage. I'll do the best I can. right?
Right.
But you know, otherwise it's like you learn and you get better, and sometimes you mess up, but you just keep right on going.
Yeah.
I mean, that's life.
It is, and it actually, it's quite interesting the way you've just phrased that whole thing, because it seems to me that there's a very non-judgmental piece to this
That's the way it has to be.
organization.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that is really something that is, it's a shame that they're not teaching that in school still, because learning to be non-judgmental at an early age is really helpful. But so we just have a couple of minutes to wrap things up, and I'm just wondering, what would you like the audience to take away as far as your organization goes?
Well, we will have a Facebook page, so follow us on Facebook. That will help you see when we're going to perform, when we're looking for musicians, which we are still. We still need some violinists and some brass players and a bass player. And we need help on the fundraising side and the marketing, kind of getting our message out there. So we are still looking for a couple of board members, and people with that expertise we're definitely looking for.
Well, I think this is very, very exciting development, and I hope that it really takes hold in the community. I have every confidence that it will. You both have such great experience, and I'm so lucky to have met you. But I've known Gwyneth for since
many years.
Well, maybe 30.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, thank you both for
Well,
coming
thanks for
on this
having
show
us. It's been-
today.
Yeah,
been
thank
great.
you very much.
It's really been great.
great.
And thank you for watching the show today. And I look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Fundy Tidings.